It's raining in the Saint-Nazaire harbour. The sound of your boots echoes on the cold concrete, mingling with the thick smell of diesel. You step into the hull of U-96, a narrow, dark steel tube. The hatch slams shut behind you. That metallic clang is the last connection you have to the outside world. Before we cast off, if you enjoy these quiet stories from deep inside World War II, feel free to leave a like. Let me know what city you're listening from and what time it is. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a small fan to stir the air. Let your mind slow down. We're stepping into a different space now. A world with no sunrises or sunsets, only the groan of steel and the pressure of the ocean. You are 19 years old. Welcome to the war. Rain pelts the harbour at Saint-Nazaire, each drop a cold needle against your skin. It's 1942, and the air chokes with diesel fumes, sharp and acrid, mingling with the briny tang of seawater. Your boots scrape the slick concrete, a hollow echo swallowed by the night's damp shroud. Before you loom U-96, a Type 7C U-boat, its hull a blackened leviathan squatting in the tide. Its silhouette seems to pulse, not with life, but with a grim promise. The sea beyond whispers secrets, vast and indifferent, as if it already knows you'll never outrun its grasp. You pause, breath fogging in the chill, and wonder if courage is just fear dressed in a uniform. The hatch gapes like a wound in the beast's side. You duck, shoulders brushing steel, and step inside. The world shrinks. The air turns thick, a stew of sweat, grease and rust that clings to your tongue. The clang of the hatch sealing behind you reverberates, a final knell severing you from the sky, from hope, from everything that isn't this iron coffin. Dim red bulbs cast a sickly glow, painting shadows that twist across pipes and valves like spectres waiting to claim you. Your bunk, barely a slab, hovers above the torpedo rack, those sleek steel eels glinting faintly, as if mocking your fragile flesh. You run a hand along the bunk's edge, its cold bite grounding you. Yet the silence, heavy and unnatural, coils tighter than the walls. It's not just quiet. It's a void that listens back. You're not alone, though. The crew shuffles through the narrow passage, their faces half lit, eyes hollow but sharp. Hans, the mechanic, mutters curses at a stubborn bolt, his voice a gravelly hymn to futility. He glances at you, smirking, and points to the torpedoes. If they go off, lad, we won't need to scrub dishes tonight. His laugh is dry, a spark of gallows wit that flickers and dies in the stale air. You force a grin, but your stomach twists. Fritz, younger than you, clutches a crumpled letter from home, his thumb tracing its folds like a prayer. Carl, the radio man, slouches by his equipment, fingers twitching as if the static might whisper salvation. These men, strangers bound by fate, are your universe now, their breaths a fragile rhythm against the ship's metallic pulse. The U-boat groans as it shifts, a living thing resenting its burden. You squeeze past a tangle of pipes, your shoulder grazing a valve that drips condensation like tears. Space is a luxury you can't afford. Every inch is claimed by machinery, by purpose, by death waiting to be unleashed. The Type 7C, you've learned, is a marvel of German engineering. 41 meters long, cramped with 44 souls, designed to stalk the Atlantic's depths and choke Allied supply lines. Yet, standing here, it feels less like a weapon and more like a trap. The walls press closer, not just steel, but a metaphor for the war itself, squeezing your youth, your dreams, into something small and sharp. You wonder if the men who built this ever sailed it, ever tasted its suffocating truth. The captain emerges from the control room, his presence a blade cutting through the haze. His eyes, pale as winter ice, sweep over you, unblinking, as if he sees not a boy but a cog in his machine. A veteran of 7 patrols, he carries the sea in his bones, his silence louder than any order. "Check your stations," he says, voice low, each word a pebble dropped into still water. You nod, heart stuttering, and move to your post near the torpedo tubes. The metal is cold under your palms, its surface slick with grease, a reminder that this ship lives on oil and desperation. You've trained for these weeks in simulators, lectures on pressure and payload, but no drill prepared you for the way the air seems to thicken, for the dread that seeps into your marrow like damp. You settle into your role, fingers fumbling with a wrench, mimicking Hans's practiced ease. The ship's hum grows steadier, a lullaby laced with menace. You glance at the pressure gauges, their needles quivering like nervous insects, and wonder how many boys like you have stood here, counting seconds until the sea decides their fate. History whispers through the hull. U-boats sank over 3,000 Allied ships, crippled supply lines, yet half their crews never returned. You push the thought away, but it lingers, a shadow stitched to your heels. Fritz, nearby, hums a tune, off-key and fragile, as if sound could keep the darkness at bay. You want to join him, but your throat is dry, your voice lost somewhere between fear and defiance. The U-boat's interior is a labyrinth of function over comfort. Pipes snake overhead, dripping when the air grows humid, which is always. Valves hiss, gauges tick, and the faint creak of steel murmurs like a restless ghost. You learn quickly to move sideways, to duck instinctively, to live in a world where standing upright is a forgotten dream. Your bunk, if you can call it that, is a canvas strip stretched over a frame, so close to the torpedoes you could whisper secrets to them. You lie there later, staring at the pipes above, their curves like the veins of some ancient beast. Sleep doesn't come. It's not invited. Instead, you listen to the ship's heartbeat, to the crew's soft snores, and to the silence that fills the gaps, heavy as a verdict. Yet amidst this, there's a strange intimacy. You share a glance with Carl, who offers a cigarette, its tip glowing like a tiny rebellion. You decline, but the gesture warms you, a thread of humanity in this steel cage. Hans, wiping grease from his hands, tells a story of a barmaid in Bremen, his voice weaving a fragile bridge to a world you might never see again. These moments, fleeting and raw, are what keep you from unraveling. They remind you that survival isn't just about breathing. It's about clinging to something, anything that feels human. You think of home, of a kitchen table, of laughter that didn't carry the weight of tomorrow. The contrast stings, but it also sharpens your resolve. The ship moves now, engines stirring, a low rumble that vibrates through your souls. You're leaving Saint-Nazaire, slipping into the Atlantic's embrace. The captain's voice crackles over the intercom, clipped and precise. Prepare for dive. Your pulse quickens, not from excitement, but from the primal dread of sinking into the unknown. You check the torpedo tubes again, a ritual to steady your hands, though your mind races. The U-boat is a predator, yes, but it's also prey, vulnerable to destroyers, to depth charges, to the sea's merciless whims. You wonder if the men who cheered at recruitment rallies ever imagined this. A boy, barely 19, entombed in steel, praying the welds hold. As the ship tilts, you brace against a bulkhead, the world shifting beneath you. The red lights flicker, casting your shadow long and jagged, like a warning. You're diving now, the sea closing over you, its weight a tangible force pressing against the hull. The silence deepens, broken only by the hum of electric motors and the occasional drip of water. You taste salt on your lips, though you haven't cried. Fritz's humming stops, his face pale, the letter still clutched tight. Hans mutters something about the engine's rhythm, but his eyes betray him, fixed on the ceiling as if he could see through it to the stars. Carl's fingers hover over his radio, waiting for a signal that might never come. You stand there, a boy in a man's war, surrounded by steel and shadows. The U-boat is your world now, a microcosm of duty, fear, and fleeting hope. You think of today's comforts, soft beds, open skies, the freedom to breathe without counting each inhale. The men of U-96 had none of that, yet they endured, driven by a stubborn will to survive, to matter, to carve their names into history's unyielding stone. You feel a quiet awe for them, mingled with sorrow, and a gratitude that your nights are merely sleepless, not spent in this iron womb. The ship hums on, carrying you deeper, and you knock once on the torpedo tube. Not for luck, but to remind yourself you're still here, still breathing, still alive. The Atlantic heaves beneath U-96, a restless giant tossing the ship like a child's toy. You're 3 days out from Saint-Nazaire, and the sea's temper shows no mercy. Waves crash against the hull, their roar muffled to a dull thud within the iron belly of the U-boat. But each jolt sends you staggering, your knees bruised from collisions with unyielding steel. The air inside grows heavier, laced with the sour tang of bile and damp wool. Your clothes cling, sodden from spray and sweat, and the cold seeps deep, a quiet thief stealing warmth from your bones. Yet the sea doesn't care. It never has. It's a timeless force, indifferent to the war, to you, to the fragile lives entombed in this steel shell. The deck tilts, and you lurch against a bulkhead, your palm grazing a rivet sharp enough to draw blood. You curse under your breath, a fleeting rebellion against the ship's cruel geometry. Fritz, the wiry lad from Hamburg, catches your eye and smirks, his face green but defiant. "Lighter now, aren't you?" he quips, nodding at the bucket you've just emptied. His voice cracks, but the jest lands like a spark in the gloom, a fleeting defiance against the misery. You manage a weak laugh, though your stomach protests. Fritz's humour, brittle as it is a lifeline, a reminder that even in this floating purgatory, you're not alone. The crew's laughter, when it comes, is a rare coin, hoarded against the dark. You learn to move with the ship's rhythm, a clumsy dance of anticipation and surrender. Each step is a gamble. The floor might rise to meet you or drop away, leaving you grasping for a pipe or rail. The U-boat's interior, a maze of levers and gauges, offers no forgiveness. You've memorized its hazards, the valve that juts out at head height, the hatch frame that snags your sleeve, the slick patches where condensation pools. Life here is a negotiation with physics, with fate. You're no sailor, not yet, but the sea is a harsh teacher, and you're a quick study. The Atlantic was the lifeblood of the Allied war effort, ferrying supplies to Britain, and U-boats like yours were its predators, sinking over 14 million tons of cargo by 1942. But knowing this doesn't steady your legs or quiet your nausea. The crew is your anchor, though they're as battered as you. Carl, the radio man, sits hunched over his set, earphones clamped tight, his fingers tapping a nervous rhythm on the dials. He hums a folk tune, off-key and halting, as if the melody could coax a signal from the ether. You catch him glancing at the ceiling, not at the pipes, but beyond, to the surface you can't see. Hans, the grizzled mechanic, prowls the engine room, his hands black with grease, his curses a steady counterpoint to the motor's drone. He pauses to offer you a sliver of sausage, hard as leather, but prized like gold. Eat, he grunts. Can't fight Jerry's war on an empty gut. You chew, the salt stinging your cracked lips, and nod gratitude. These small acts, shared food or a nod, weave a fragile net of trust. The captain is a shadow, rarely seen but ever present. You glimpse him in the control room, bent over charts, his pencil scratching paths across the ocean's vastness. His face is unreadable, carved from stone, but his eyes burn with a focus that unsettles you. 7 patrols, they say, each abrush with death. You wonder what he sees when he closes those eyes, if he dreams of the sea or something lost to it. His orders are sparse, delivered in a voice that cuts through the din. Maintain course, check fuel. You obey, not out of fear, but because his certainty is the only fixed point in this rolling chaos. In 1942, U-boat captains were legends, their wolfpack tactics terrorizing Allied convoys, yet their survival rate was grim. Fewer than half returned from extended patrols. You push the statistic away, but it lingers like damp. Sleep is a thief, slipping through your fingers. Your bunk, a narrow strip above the torpedo tubes, sways with the ship's motion, creaking like a coffin lid. You lie there, eyes tracing the pipes overhead, their beads of moisture glinting like stars in a sky you can't reach. The crew's snores mingle with the engine's hum, a discordant lullaby that fails to soothe. You think of home, of fields dry and warm, of a mother's voice calling you to supper. The memory stings, too vivid for this grey world. Instead, you focus on the present, the ache in your limbs, the taste of salt, the faint hope that tomorrow's waves might be kinder. Modern comforts, hot showers, soft beds, feel like myths, and you marvel at the men who endured this, their resilience a quiet monument to human stubbornness. The mess is a cramped nook, barely room for 6 to sit. Supper is a tin of beans, cold and gluey, spoon from a shared can. Fritz tells a story of a girl he danced with, his voice soft, as if the memory might shatter. Carl counters with a tale of a bar brawl, exaggerated to absurdity, his grin daring you to call his bluff. You listen, grateful for the distraction, though your thoughts drift to the sea outside. It's a graveyard, studded with wrecks, merchant ships, destroyers, U-boats like yours. Over 3,000 Allied vessels fell to U-boats by mid-war, but the cost was steep. 1 in 3 U-boats never returned. You wonder if your ship will join them, its name erased by the waves, and the thought sends a shiver down your spine. You find rituals to tether yourself. You tap your boot thrice against the deck before standing, a silent plea to whatever gods watch over sailors. Fritz keeps his letter tucked inside his jacket, padding it like a talisman. Carl scratches tallies on his bunk's frame, 1 for each day survived. These acts, small and desperate, are your defiance against the sea's vast indifference. Hans catches you tapping your boot and snorts. Praying to Neptune, lad. He's a stingy bastard. You smile, but his words echo your fear. No deity governs this deep, only chance and steel. The crew's camaraderie, though, is a light in the murk, a reminder that survival is collective, that you're bound by more than duty. The ship's motion never stops, a relentless cradle rocking you between exhaustion and dread. You learn to read its moods, the sharp pitch when a wave strikes bow on, the slow roll when the sea toys with you. Each movement tests the hull, its welds groaning like an old man's joints. You check the gauges, a task you've been assigned, and watch the needles dance, their flicker a pulse you can't trust. The U-boat is a marvel, yes, but also a gamble, its strength only as good as the men who maintain it. You think of today's ships, sleek and automated, and feel a pang of awe for these sailors, who navigated with sextants and sheer will, their courage a currency you can barely fathom. Night falls, though you can't see it. The red lights burn on, a perpetual twilight that blurs time. You sit with Fritz, sharing a cigarette, its smoke curling like a ghost in the stale air. He speaks of his sister, her letters full of mundane joys, bread baked, a cat's new kittens. You envy her ignorance, her world untouched by this watery abyss. Yet, you also cherish it, this proof that life persists beyond the war. You tell him of a river you fished as a boy, its current gentle, its banks alive with birds. The memory feels stolen, too bright for this place, but Fritz nods, understanding. These stories are your rations, sustaining you when beans and sausage run dry. The U-96 hums, a restless beast cradling you in its iron gut. 4 days into the patrol, the Atlantic's wrath has dulled to a sullen churn, but the ship's confines tighten like a noose around your spirit. The air is a stale broth, thick with the musk of unwashed bodies and the metallic bite of rust. The dim red glow of the lights paints your hands crimson, as if you're already blooded by a battle not yet fought. Time blurs here, measured not in hours, but in the creak of steel, the drip of condensation, the faint hope that you'll see daylight again. The sea is your captor, the U-boat your cell, and survival is a game of endurance played in whispers. You navigate the ship's innards with practiced caution, your body learning to bend and twist through its labyrinthine veins. The passages are so narrow that your elbows brush cold metal with every step. Each graze a reminder of your fragility. A low pipe catches your cap, yanking it to the floor, and you curse softly, the sound swallowed by the engine's drone. The crew's routines are your only compass. Meals at precise intervals, maintenance checks like sacred rites, and the endless vigil of waiting. You're assigned to monitor the bilge pumps, a task as monotonous as it is vital. The gauges flicker, their needles trembling like moths trapped in glass, and you watch them with a focus born of dread, knowing a single failure could drown you all. In 1942, U-boats like this one were Germany's spear in the Atlantic, disrupting Allied lifelines, yet their crews lived on a razor's edge, with over 40% never returning. The numbers haunt you, a shadow you can't shake. The mess is a sanctuary, though it's little more than a glorified closet. You sit shoulder to shoulder with the crew, knees knocking against a table bolted to the deck. Supper is a tin of pickled cabbage and a slab of bread so dense it could anchor the ship. You chew slowly, the tang stinging your tongue, and listen to the men trade stories. Otto, a wiry gunner with a scar across his knuckles, spins a tale of a Berlin cabaret, his voice weaving glamour into the gloom. You smile, but your mind drifts to the bread's weight in your hand, a metaphor for the days piling up, each heavier than the last. Otto pauses, eyeing the loaf. Eat up, lad. If we sink, this'll keep you afloat longer than a lifeboat. His grin is sharp, a blade of humour honed by despair, and you laugh despite the chill it sends through you. Sleep is a myth, a fleeting guest in this iron cage. Your bunk, a thin strip of canvas, sags under your weight, so close to the overhead pipes you can trace their rivets with your fingertips. The air is heavy, pressing against your chest, and the ship's sway rocks you like a cradle built for nightmares. You lie awake, staring into the dark, where shadows dance to the rhythm of the engines. The crew's breaths are uneven, some snoring, others muttering in their sleep, their dreams leaking into the silence. You wonder what they see. Home, perhaps, or the faces of those they'll never meet again. Your dreams are fragments, a meadow, a laugh, then the suffocating press of water. Modern beds, soft and warm, feel like a fairy tale, and you marvel at the men who endured this, their resolve a quiet defiance against the void. The captain's presence is a constant, though he speaks little. You see him at dawn, or what passes for dawn in this timeless deep, checking the periscope with a precision that borders on reverence. His hands, calloused and steady, move as if the ship is an extension of his will. You've heard whispers of his past, a merchant sailor before the war, now a predator of the seas, leading wolfpacks that sank thousands of tons of Allied shipping. Yet his eyes betray a weariness, a ledger of losses etched in their depths. He catches you watching and nods, a gesture so brief it's almost imagined. "Keep the pumps clear," he says, voice like gravel underfoot. You nod back, your throat tight, knowing his trust is a fragile gift in a world where mistakes are measured in fathoms. Daily tasks are your tether to sanity. You scrub the bilge pump's filter, your fingers numb from the cold water, the grime blackening your nails. The work is mindless, yet it grounds you, a ritual against the chaos of the unknown. The ship is a living thing, its systems demanding constant care. Pumps, valves, batteries, all prone to failure under the sea's crushing weight. You learn their quirks, the pump that sticks, the gauge that lies unless tapped twice. Hans taught you that trick, his patience a rare softness in his rough demeanor. "Machines don't care if you're scared," he said once, wiping oil from his brow. "They just want respect." You respect them now, because disrespect means death, a truth as stark as the steel around you. The crew's rituals are a language of survival. Otto carves tally marks into his bunk, one for each day at sea. His knives scrape a defiant tick against oblivion. Klaus, a quiet loader, polishes a pocket watch, its face cracked but still ticking, a relic from a father he never speaks of. You've started your own, tracing the outline of a rivet near your bunk, its edges smooth under your thumb, a silent vow to keep going. These acts are small, absurd even, but they're your armor against the creeping dread. You think of today's rituals, coffee sipped slowly, a phone's glow at midnight, and feel a pang of gratitude for their simplicity, for a life where fear doesn't dictate your every move. The air grows heavier, a damp weight that clings to your skin. Ventilation is a luxury, and the U-boat systems strain to keep it breathable. You notice the crew's faces pale and drawn, their eyes sunken from fatigue. Otto's scar seems sharper now, a map of battles fought before you joined. Klaus coughs, a dry rasp he tries to muffle, and you all pretend not to hear, knowing sickness here is a death sentence. The U-boat's design, you've learned, prioritized stealth over comfort. 44 men in a 41-meter tube, with one toilet for every 22, a cruel arithmetic. You've queued for it, the stench of punishment, the act a humbling reminder of your body's frailty. Yet you endure, because stopping isn't an option. Moments of connection flicker like sparks. Klaus shares a story of his childhood, a winter fair where he won a toy boat. His voice is soft, almost lost in the engine's hum, but you listen, hungry for anything that isn't steel or sea. You offer a memory of your own, a summer fair, the taste of warm cider, the feel of grass underfoot. The crew nods, their silence a shared understanding. These stories are lifelines, proof that you were once more than this ship's prisoner. You think of the men who sailed U-boats, their tales buried in archives or lost to the deep, and feel a quiet awe. Their courage wasn't loud, It was the stubborn act of waking each day, of breathing in a cage. The ship groans, a low lament as it shifts in the current. You check the gauges again. The needle steady but unforgiving. A drop of water falls from a pipe, landing on your cheek like a cold kiss. You wipe it away, but the sensation lingers, a reminder of the ocean waiting just beyond the hull. The U-boat is your shield, your captor, your fate. You wonder how many others have stood here, counting drips, counting days, counting the cost of survival. The war's vast machinery, tanks, planes, ships, feels distant. But here, in this iron cage, it's personal, etched into every rivet, every breath. You trace the rivet again, your thumb steady, and whisper a promise to endure, to carry these men's ghosts into the light. The U-96 glides through the Atlantic's depths, a shadow stitched to the sea's underbelly. 5 days out, the monotony has carved itself into your bones, a dull ache that mirrors the ship's ceaseless hum. The air is a stale veil, heavy with the reek of oil and salt, clinging to your skin like a second shadow. You sit at your post, fingers tracing the worn edge of a torpedo tube, its surface cold and unyielding, a silent partner in this underwater purgatory. The red lights flicker, casting jagged shadows that dance across the bulkheads, as if the ship itself is dreaming of escape. Then, a crackle breaks the stillness. Faint, erratic, like a heartbeat stuttering to life. Carl, hunched over his radio, stiffens, his earphones a lifeline to a world beyond the hull. The crew freezes, eyes darting, breath held. Something is coming. Carl's fingers dance across the dials, coaxing the signal from the ether. The static parts revealing a whisper of Morse, sharp and urgent. "Convoy," he mutters, voice barely audible, as if speaking too loudly might scare it away. Your pulse quickens, a drumbeat against the quiet. The signal is from an Allied merchant convoy, plodding through the Atlantic, their cargo vital to Britain's survival. In 1942, these convoys were the arteries of the war, ferrying food, fuel, and weapons across thousands of miles, and U-boats like yours were the wolves tasked with severing them. The Kriegsmarine's wolfpack tactics had already sunk over 1,000 ships that year, but each attack was a gamble, a dance with death beneath the waves. You glance at Carl, his face pale, eyes wide, as if the signal carries not just coordinates, but a verdict. The captain emerges from the control room, his silhouette a blade slicing through the tension. He leans over Carl's shoulder, studying the scribbled numbers, his expression unreadable, a mask forged by years at sea. "Confirm the bearing," he says, his voice a low growl, each word precise as a scalpel. Carl nods, his hands trembling but steady enough to obey. The crew shifts, a ripple of movement, like animals sensing a storm. You feel it too, a tightening in your chest, a prickle along your spine. The boredom that cloaked the past days dissolves, replaced by a cold clarity. This is why you're here, why you're entombed in this steel beast. Yet, the thrill is laced with dread, a poison seeping into your veins. You wonder if the men on those ships above feel it too, their hearts racing in the dark. The control room becomes a hive, quiet but electric. The captain traces a path on the chart, his pencil scratching like a quill signing a death warrant. "Wolfpack rendezvous, 0200 hours," he announces, his gaze sweeping the crew, pinning each man in place. You're to join 3 other U-boats, a coordinated strike under cover of night, a tactic that turned the Atlantic into a graveyard. The plan is simple yet brutal. Surface after dusk, strike fast, then vanish into the deep. You listen, your hands clenching the edge of your station, the metal biting into your palms. The crew moves with purpose now, checking valves, calibrating gauges, their motions a liturgy of survival. Otto, the gunner, polishes a torpedo casing, his fingers lingering as if it's a lover's cheek. "Let's hope she's punctual," he quips, his grin sharp. You smirk, but the humour cuts, a reminder that these steel eels are your only edge against the abyss. You move to assist with the torpedo checks, your hands clumsy at first, guided by Klaus's quiet instructions. The tubes are slick with grease, their weight a promise of destruction. You've seen diagrams, trained on mock-ups, but the reality is heavier, the metal cold as a grave. Each torpedo, nearly 7 meters long, carries enough explosive to rip a ship apart, yet here, in this cramped womb, they feel like sleeping giants, waiting for your touch to wake them. The U-boat's arsenal, 14 torpedoes plus deck guns, was designed to cripple convoys, but success depended on precision, on silence, on luck. You wipe sweat from your brow, the air thick with anticipation, and wonder if the men above, sipping coffee on their bridges, know they're being hunted. The ship's rhythm shifts, a subtle tightening of its pulse. The engines hum softer, conserving power for the dive ahead. You glance at Klaus, his cracked pocket watch glinting in the red light. It's ticking a faint rebellion against the sea's timeless hunger. He catches your eye and shrugs, a gesture that says everything and nothing. "Gotta keep moving," he murmurs, as if stillness is a sin. You nod, understanding. To stop is to surrender, to let the sea claim you. The crew's faces are taut now, their earlier chatter replaced by clipped exchanges. Otto checks his station again, his scar twitching as he mutters calculations. Klaus adjusts his watch, as if time could be persuaded. You find yourself tapping the torpedo tube. 3 soft knocks, a ritual borrowed from nowhere, a plea to the steel gods for favour. The captain calls a briefing, his voice cutting through the hum. You gather in the control room, bodies press close, the air warm with breath. He spreads the chart, its lines a map of fate, and points to a grid where the convoy moves, unaware. "We strike at night," he says, his tone flat, as if describing a routine. "Stay sharp, no mistakes." His eyes linger on you, a boy among men, and you feel the weight of his trust, heavy as the sea. "The wolfpack," he explains, "relies on coordination, each U-boat a fang in a larger jaw. In 1942, these tactics decimated Allied shipping, with U-boats sinking 6 million tons of cargo. But the cost was steep. Hundreds of submarines lost, thousands of men swallowed by the deep. You push the thought away, focusing on the chart's stark lines, the promise of action. The tension is a living thing now, coiling through the ship. You return to your post, checking the torpedo tubes again, your fingers tracing their contours, seeking reassurance. The metal is unyielding, a cold truth that grounds you. You think of home, of a street lamp's glow, of laughter shared over warm bread. The memory is a knife, sharp and fleeting, and you shove it deep where it can't distract you. The crew moves in silence, their motions precise, their eyes distant. Otto hums a tune, barely audible, a fragile thread of defiance. Klaus adjusts his watch again, its face a cracked mirror reflecting his fear. You wonder what they carry in their hearts, what anchors them to this life, and realize you're all bound by the same fragile hope, to see the surface again. The ship prepares to dive, the captain's voice a steady anchor. "Rig for silent running," he orders, and the crew obeys, their movements swift and practiced. The lights dim further, the red glow fading to a whisper, as if the ship itself is holding its breath. You feel the deck tilt, the sea's embrace tightening, and your heart pounds, a traitor to your calm. The U-boat is a predator, yes, but also prey, vulnerable to the destroyers prowling above. You think of modern ships, their radar and sonar, their spacious decks, and feel a quiet awe for these men who hunted with nothing but skill and nerve. Their courage, born of desperation, humbles you, a testament to a resilience you can only imagine. As the dive begins, you stand at your post, the torpedo tubes your silent companions. The ship slips deeper, the pressure a tangible force, squeezing the hull until it groans. You listen, ears straining for any sound. A wave, a propeller, a betrayal. The crew's faces are masks now, their eyes reflecting the red light like embers in a dying fire. You tap the tube again, 3 knocks, a silent vow to endure. The signal, that faint Morse pulse, lingers in your mind, a beacon and a warning. You're no longer just a boy in a war. You're a hunter, a ghost, a breath held in the dark. And somewhere above the convoy sails on, oblivious to the jaws waiting below. The U-96 pulses like a heart in the Atlantic's black depths, its steel frame a thin shield against the sea's crushing embrace. 6 days into the patrol, the faint signal from the Allied convoy still lingers in the air, a ghost that has shifted the ship's soul. You stand at your post, the torpedo tubes gleaming under the red lights, their silent menace a mirror to your coiled nerves. The air is a heavy shroud, laced with the bitter scent of ozone and the faint musk of fear. The crew moves with a predator's grace, their motions honed by purpose. Yet the silence between them is sharp, a blade poised to fall. The ship feels alive, not with warmth, but with a cold hunger, as if it knows what's coming. Above, the convoy plows through the night, unaware of the jaws assembling below. The captain gathers you in the control room, a space so cramped your shoulders brush against Klaus's, his cracked watch ticking like a metronome of fate. The chart lies open, its grid a chessboard where lives are pawns. The captain's finger traces a path, deliberate and unyielding, marking the rendezvous point for the wolfpack. 3 other U-boats converging to strike at midnight. His voice is a low rumble, steady as the sea's pulse. We surface at 2300, attack at 0200, no errors. His eyes, pale as frost, sweep over you, and you feel exposed, a boy playing at war. The wolfpack tactic, he explains, is a dance of shadows. U-boats stalk the convoy's flanks, striking in unison to overwhelm escorts, then vanishing into the deep. In 1942, this strategy crippled Allied shipping, sinking over 600 vessels in 6 months. But each attack risked annihilation. You nod, throat tight, the weight of history pressing against your chest. The plan unfolds like a dark tapestry. U-96 will take the northern flank, targeting stragglers while the others hit the convoy's heart. The captain's pencil scratches coordinates, each mark a promise of chaos. You imagine the ships above, Liberty freighters, lumbering giants laden with grain and steel, their crews smoking cigarettes, unaware of the predators circling. The U-boat's strength lies in stealth, its diesel engines quieted for electric silence, its periscope a fleeting eye in the night. Yet, the escorts, destroyers with sonar and depth charges, are the true threat, their vigilance a noose around your neck. You glance at Otto, his scar twitching as he calculates firing angles, his fingers restless. "Hope they're napping up there," he mutters, his grin a slash of defiance. You force a smile, but the jest lands like a stone, sinking into the dread pooling in your gut. You move to prepare the torpedoes, your hands steadier now, guided by muscle memory. The tubes are your domain, their mechanisms a puzzle you've learned to solve. You check the seals, the pressure valves, each click a reassurance against the void. Klaus works beside you, his watch glinting. its cracked face a reminder of time's fragility. He hums a tune, barely audible, a fragile thread against the ship's mechanical hymn. The torpedoes, each a 500-kilogram harbinger, are primed for launch, their warheads silent but eager. You've read the manuals. A single hit can split a freighter's spine, sending it to the deep in minutes. Yet, the thought of those crews, men like you, twists something inside. You push it away, focusing on the task, on the cold precision that keeps you alive. The crew's tension is a current, flowing through whispered orders and tightened jaws. Hans, in the engine room, checks the batteries, his curses a soft litany against their temperamental hum. "Keep purring, you bastards," he growls, patting a casing like a reluctant pet. His faith in the machinery is your lifeline, for a U-boat's electric motors are its cloak of invisibility, allowing dives to 200 meters to evade detection. In the Battle of the Atlantic, this stealth was Germany's edge, but it came at a cost. Over 200 U-boats were lost to mechanical failure or enemy fire by mid-war. You feel the ship's fragility, its welds a prayer against the sea's wrath, and wonder if Hans's gruff devotion will be enough. The captain's briefing lingers, a blueprint of violence etched into your mind. You return to the control room, where the chart now feels like a battlefield, its lines a map of destinies. The wolfpack's strength is unity, each boat a fang in a collective maw. But coordination is fragile, reliant on coded radio bursts that could betray your position. You think of modern navies, their satellites and drones, and marvel at the audacity of these men, who hunted with sextants and gut instinct, their lives staked on a signal's clarity. The captain adjusts the periscope, his movements a ritual, as if he's communing with the sea itself. You watch, awed by his calm, a man who's danced this dance before, each step a defiance of death. The ship prepares for silent running, a state of ghostly stillness. The captain orders lights dimmed, voices hushed, even footsteps softened to avoid sonar's prying ears. You feel the deck shift, the U-boat easing into a shallow dive, its bow dipping like a predator scenting blood. The air grows denser, pressing against your temples, and you taste metal on your tongue, a prelude to the hunt. Otto checks his station, his scar a pale crescent in the gloom, his eyes distant but sharp. Klaus adjusts his watch, its tick a faint rebellion against the silence. You find yourself tracing the torpedo tube's edge. A habit now, its cold surface a tether to reality. The crew's faces are masks, their breath shallow, as if sound itself could summon the enemy. The wolfpack's history whispers through the hull. In 1942, U-boats were Germany's terror, their coordinated strikes paralyzing Allied supply lines. But the tide was turning. Allied codebreakers, armed with Enigma decrypts, began to anticipate wolfpack movements, turning hunters into the hunted. You know none of this, only the captain's orders, the chart's stark grids, the promise of action. Yet, the weight of history presses against you, a reminder that each patrol is a roll of the dice, with odds stacked against you. You think of the men above, their laughter, their letters home, and feel a pang of kinship, quickly buried. War demands you see them as targets, not brothers, but the heart resists such math. The ship's silence is a living thing, wrapping you in its chill. You stand at your post, the torpedo tubes your silent sentinels, their weight a reminder of what's to come. The crew moves like ghosts, their motions precise, their eyes reflecting the red light like embers. Hans emerges from the engine room, his hands black with grease, his nod a grudging approval of the ship's health. "She's ready," he says, and you cling to his certainty, a raft in the storm. You think of today's world, where battles are fought with screens and algorithms, and feel a quiet awe for these sailors, whose courage was forged in darkness, their tools as crude as their resolve was fierce. As the hour nears, you check the tubes again, your fingers tracing their contours, seeking flaws that aren't there. The ship is a taut bowstring, ready to release its fury, but you feel the fragility beneath, the welds that groan, the batteries that falter. You glance at Klaus, his watch now still, his face a mask of focus. Otto hums a tune cut short by a glare from the captain. You tap the tube, 3 soft knocks, a silent prayer to the steel gods. The wolfpack waits, a phantom pack circling its prey, and you're part of it, a boy turned predator, your heart a drumbeat in the dark. Above, the convoy sails, its lights pinpricks in the night, unaware of the fangs closing in. The U-96 trembles, a steel pulse swallowed by the Atlantic's inky void. 7 days into the patrol, the wolfpack's plan hums in your blood, a predatory rhythm driving the ship toward its prey. You stand at your station, the torpedo tube's silent sentinels, their cold surfaces slick under your palms. The air is a dense fog, heavy with the tang of battery acid and the faint, sour edge of dread. The captain's order comes sharp and sudden. Dive, silent running. The world shifts. Red lights flare, bathing the crew in a crimson haze, as if the ship itself is bleeding. The diesel engines choke to a halt, their roar replaced by the ghostly hum of electric motors, a whisper that barely disturbs the sea's oppressive stillness. The deck tilts, and you brace against a bulkhead, your heart a caged bird battering your ribs. The deep awaits, a maw ready to claim you. The ship slips downward, its bow slicing through layers of black water, each meter a step into oblivion. You feel the pressure build, not just on the hull, but in your chest, a tightening that steals your breath. The gauges flicker, their needles quivering like frightened eyes, marking the descent. 100 meters, 120, 150. The U-boat's design allows dives to 200 meters, but every sailor knows the tales. Ships crushed at lesser depths, their crews entombed in twisted steel. In 1942, the Atlantic was a graveyard, with over 300 U-boats lost to depth charges, collisions, or the sea's merciless grip. You push the thought away, but it clings, a shadow sewn to your skin. The silence is a living thing now, wrapping you in its chill, broken only by the faint creak of the hull. A moan that speaks of burdens borne too long. The crew moves like phantoms, their steps soft, their voices banished. Klaus, his watch stilled for once, adjusts a valve with trembling fingers, his face a mask of focus. Otto, stationed near the periscope, grips its handles, his scar a pale crescent in the red glow, his eyes fixed on nothing. You catch Hans's glance from the engine room, his grease-streaked face unreadable, but his nod is a lifeline, a silent vow that the motors will hold. The captain stands at the helm, his silhouette a monolith, his hands steady on the controls. His calm is unnerving, a beacon in the dark, yet you wonder if he feels the sea's weight, if his dreams are as haunted as yours. Silent running is the U-boat's cloak, rendering it invisible to sonar, but it demands absolute stillness. Every cough, every clank, a betrayal to the destroyers prowling above. You check the torpedo tubes, a ritual to anchor your racing mind. The seals are tight, the mechanisms primed, but the act feels futile, a prayer to a god of steel who offers no mercy. The ship's descent slows, leveling at 180 meters, a depth that tests the hull's resolve. The air grows heavier, pressing against your temples, and you taste iron on your tongue, as if the ship's strain is seeping into you. You think of the convoy above, their propellers churning, their lights a mockery of the stars you haven't seen in days. The wolfpack strike is hours away, but this dive is the prelude, a test of nerve and machine. You imagine modern submarines, their automated systems and spacious quarters, and feel a quiet awe for these men who wagered their lives on rivets and grit, their courage aflame in the deep. The silence is a tyrant, ruling every gesture. You move with exaggerated care, your boots whispering against the deck, your breath shallow to avoid disturbing the stillness. Klaus pauses, his hand hovering over a gauge, as if a touch might shatter the fragile piece. Otto's fingers tighten on the periscope, his knuckles white, a silent battle against the urge to act. You feel it too, the itch to move, to speak, to break the spell, but you resist, knowing a single sound could summon death. The hull groans, a low lament that sends a shiver down your spine, and you glance at the pressure gauge, its needle flirting with the red. Hans, catching your eye, mutters, "She's holding, but she's not happy about it." His voice is a whisper, laced with a grim smirk, as if the ship's complaints are a lover's quarrel. You nod, the humour a fleeting spark in the dark, a defiance against the sea's hunger. The captain's voice cuts through, soft but commanding. Maintain depth, check systems. You obey, your hands moving to the torpedo controls, their levers cold and unyielding. The ship is a delicate balance, its batteries draining with each minute of silent running, its oxygen thinning under the crew's collective breath. You've learned the U-boat's limits. 48 hours submerged before air turns toxic, batteries die, or morale crumbles. The crew's discipline is a marvel, their silence a testament to training and terror. You think of the men who sailed these ships, their average age barely 22, their lives spent in this underwater limbo, chasing a victory that felt ever more distant. Their resolve humbles you, a stark contrast to your restless nights, safe in a world they fought to shape. The ship's noises are a language you're learning to read. A drip from a valve is a warning, a hiss from a pipe a sigh of strain. You listen, ears straining, for the telltale ping of sonar, the harbinger of depth charges. The absence of sound is both relief and torment, a void that amplifies your fear. Klaus adjusts his position, his watch catching the light, its cracked face a mirror to your fractured calm. Otto shifts, his scar twitching, as if it senses the danger you can't see. You find yourself counting breaths, a rhythm to steady your nerves, each inhale a small victory over panic. The crew's faces are etched with the same quiet dread, their eyes reflecting the red light like embers in a dying fire. The dive stretches, minutes bleeding into eternity. You think of home, of a window open to a summer breeze, of laughter that didn't carry the weight of survival. The memory is a blade, sharp and fleeting, and you bury it deep, where it can't distract you. Instead, you focus on the ship, its pulse a reminder of your purpose. The U-boat is a predator, yes, but also a fugitive, its survival dependent on secrecy and speed. You marvel at the men who mastered this dance, their skill a quiet poetry, their lives a currency spent in the deep. The wolfpack strike looms, a promise of action, but this dive is the crucible, forging you into something harder or breaking you entirely. The captain checks the periscope, his movements a ritual of precision. You watch, mesmerized, as he adjusts its focus, his eyes searching for a glimpse of the surface. His silence is a command, a reminder that every second counts. You return to your post, the torpedo tubes your anchor, their weight a promise of violence to come. The ship holds steady, but the hull's groans grow louder. a chorus of protest against the sea's embrace. You think of modern comforts, spacious rooms, clean air, and feel a pang of gratitude for their ease, for a life where danger is a story, not a reality. These men, your ghostly companions, lived on the edge of oblivion, their courage a beacon you can only hope to honor. As the dive continues, you tap the torpedo tube. 3 soft knocks, a habit now, a vow to endure. The crew's silence is a shared prayer, their faces carved from shadow and resolve. Klaus's watch ticks on, a faint defiance against the deep's timeless hunger. Otto's scar glints, a map of battles yet to come. Hans's smirk lingers, a spark of humor that refuses to die. You stand there, a boy in a man's war, the sea pressing close, its weight a reminder of your fragility. The U-96 dives deeper, a ghost in the dark, and you with it, bound to its fate, to the wolfpack's hunt, to the silent promise that you'll see the surface again, or not at all. 8 days into the patrol, the wolfpack's hunt has drawn tight, a noose around the unseen convoy above. You stand at your post, hands pressed against the torpedo tubes, their cold surfaces a silent vow of violence. The air is a taut wire, thick with the sour bite of anticipation, the faint hum of electric motors weaving a hymn of stealth. The red lights pulse like a fading heartbeat, casting your shadow long and jagged across the bulkheads. The captain's voice slices through the stillness, sharp as a blade. Roar, Eins, loss. The ship shudders, a faint tremor as the torpedo leaps from its tube, a steel eel chasing its prey. Your pulse hammers, a drumbeat against the silence, and you brace for the seconds that will define your fate. The torpedo is gone, its path a mystery in the deep. You feel the ship's lurch, a subtle shift, as if it's exhaled a piece of its soul. The crew holds its breath, eyes locked on the captain, who stands at the periscope, his face carved from stone, unyielding. The control room is a cathedral of tension, every man a statue, frozen in the act of waiting. You grip the tube's lever, its metal biting into your palm, a tether to reality as time stretches, each second a needle piercing your resolve. Above the convoy sails, its propellers a distant thunder, a reminder of lives you'll never know. In 1942, a single torpedo could sink a 10,000-ton freighter, cutting off supplies vital to the Allied war effort. But the wait for impact was a crucible, testing nerve and hope. You count silently, your lips moving without sound, praying for a hit. The captain adjusts the periscope, his movements precise, a ritual of predation. His eyes, pale as winter, scan the surface, seeking the ripple that signals success. You watch him, a boy among giants, and wonder what he sees. Glory, duty, or just another mark on a chart. The U-boat's torpedoes, each carrying 280 kilograms of explosive, were Germany's fangs in the Atlantic, sinking over 1,000 ships that year alone. Yet, success was fleeting, often followed by the hunter becoming the hunted. You feel the weight of that truth, the sea's indifference pressing against the hull, a reminder that victory is a coin flipped in the dark. Klaus nearby clutches his watch, its cracked face glinting, as if time could shield him from what's coming. The silence is a predator stalking the crew. You hear it in the absence of chatter, in the shallow breaths, in the faint creak of the hull under pressure. Otto, his scar a pale slash, stands rigid at his station, fingers twitching as if itching to act. Hans, in the engine room, monitors the batteries, his silence a prayer for their endurance. You think of the men above, their lives woven into the cargo, grain, oil, lives. Now a target in your sights. The thought is a splinter, sharp and intrusive, and you push it away, focusing on the tube. its empty chamber a hollow echo of your uncertainty. You've trained for this, memorized firing sequences, but no drill captures the weight of this moment. The knowledge that your hands have unleashed death. Minutes crawl, each one a lifetime. You glance at Klaus, his eyes wide, reflecting the red light like embers in a storm. He adjusts his watch, a futile gesture, and you wonder if he's counting seconds or heartbeats. The ship is still a ghost in the deep, its electric motors humming softly, a lullaby laced with menace. You feel the sea's weight, its pressure a tangible force, squeezing the hull until it groans. The U-boat's design was a marvel, allowing dives to evade sonar, but each moment submerged drained batteries and air, a delicate balance between stealth and survival. You think of modern submarines, their digital precision, and marvel at these men who gambled everything on analog gauges and sheer will. Their courage a quiet fire in the dark. A faint thud ripples through the hull, a muffled drumbeat from the surface. The captain's head snaps up, his voice low. Hit confirmed. A murmur ripples through the crew, not joy, but relief. A fleeting exhale in the suffocating air. You imagine the freighter above, its hull breached, water rushing in, men scrambling in the night. The image is a weight, heavy as the sea, and you bury it, focusing on the captain's next command. Prepare for dive. The hit is a victory, but it's also a beacon, a flare to the escorts above. You feel the shift, the hunter's thrill giving way to the prey's dread, a pendulum swing that defines this war. Otto grins, sharp and fleeting. Hope they enjoyed the fireworks, he mutters, his voice a spark of defiance. You nod, the humor a bitter pill, masking the truth that every hit invites retaliation. The crew moves, swift and silent, readying for the dive. You check the torpedo tubes, ensuring the next is primed, your hands steady despite the tremor in your chest. The ship tilts, its bow dipping deeper, and you brace against a bulkhead, the cold metal grounding you. The captain's orders are clipped, 150 meters, silent running. The lights dim further, the red glow a whisper now, as if the ship itself is hiding. You feel the pressure mount, not just on the hull, but in your soul, a tightening that makes every breath a choice. The U-boat's survival hinged on these moments, its stealth a shield against the destroyer's sonar. But silence was a fragile armor, easily shattered by a single mistake. You think of the men above, their panic, their fight to survive, and feel a pang of kinship, quickly smothered. War demands you see them as targets, but the heart resists, whispering of shared humanity. You focus on your task, the tubes your anchor, their levers a language you're learning to speak. Klaus adjusts his watch again, its tick a faint rebellion against the silence. Hans's shadow moves in the engine room, his hands coaxing life from the batteries. The crew's discipline is a marvel, their silence a testament to training and terror. You think of modern navies, their vast arrays of technology, and feel a quiet awe for these sailors who fought with nothing but skill and nerve, their lives a currency spent in the deep. The ship settles at its depth, the hull groaning like a beast in pain. You listen, ears straining for the ping of sonar, the harbinger of depth charges. The absence is a fragile gift, but it doesn't ease the knot in your gut. You tap the torpedo tube, 3 soft knocks, a ritual to steady your hands, to remind yourself you're still here. The crew's faces are masks, their eyes reflecting the red light like dying stars. Otto's scar twitches, a map of battles yet to come. Klaus's watch ticks on, a faint defiance against the sea's hunger. Hans's silence is a prayer, his hands steady on the machines that keep you alive. The hit lingers, a ghost in the air. You imagine the freighter sinking, its cargo lost, its crew fighting the waves. The thought is a stone, heavy in your chest, and you bury it deep, where it can't distract you. The U-boat is your world now, its steel walls your only truth. These men, your ghostly companions, carried the war's weight in their hands, their courage a quiet monument to survival. You stand there, a boy in a steel cage, the torpedo's echo fading, and wait for the sea to answer. You lean against the torpedo tube, its surface still warm from the launch, a silent witness to the violence you've unleashed. The red lights flicker, casting a feverish glow over the crew, their faces carved from shadow and strain. A low thud ripples through the hull, muffled but unmistakable, like a distant drum struck in mourning. The captain's voice breaks the hush, steady as stone. Direct hit, freighter down. A murmur of relief stirs, but it's fragile. A candle flame in a storm. You feel a spark of triumph, sharp and fleeting, before the sea's cold truth smothers it. The control room is a crucible. The crew's eyes fixed on the captain as he peers through the periscope, its lens a narrow window to the chaos above. The freighter, a 10,000-ton behemoth, laden with Allied supplies, is breaking apart, its hull torn by the torpedo's bite. You imagine the scene. Flames licking the deck, water rushing through jagged wounds, men scrambling for lifeboats under a merciless sky. In 1942, U-boats like yours were the scourge of the Atlantic, sinking over 200 ships that year. Each victory a blow to Britain's lifeline. Yet the cost was etched in the faces around you. Klaus, his watch stilled, his jaw tight. Otto, his scar a stark line in the crimson light. Hans, his hands restless on a valve. You feel the weight of their silence, a shared knowledge that every hit paints a target on your back. The captain lowers the periscope, his expression unreadable, a mask forged in battles you'll never know. Dive deeper, he orders, his voice a quiet blade. 150 meters. Silent running. The ship tilts, its bow dipping into the abyss, and you brace against a bulkhead, the cold steel biting your palms. The engine's hum softens to a whisper, a ghostly hymn that barely stirs the darkness. You feel the sea's pressure, a vast hand pressing against the hull, its groans a lament for the lives above and below. The crew moves with practiced stealth, their steps soft, their breaths shallow, as if sound itself could summon the enemy. You think of the men on the freighter, their panic mirroring your own, and a pang of unwanted kinship pierces you, quickly buried under duty's weight. You check the torpedo tubes, a ritual to steady your trembling hands. The empty chamber yawns, a void that echoes the uncertainty in your chest. The remaining torpedoes wait, their warheads silent but eager, each a promise of destruction. You've memorized their mechanics, 500 kilograms of explosive, primed to shatter steel. But the reality is heavier, the knowledge that your hands have tipped the scales of fate. Otto, nearby, adjusts his station, his scar twitching as he mutters, "Bet they're throwing a grand party up there now, all flames and fanfare." His grin is sharp, a spark of gallows wit that cuts through the tension. But it fades fast, swallowed by the ship's oppressive hush. You nod, the humor a bitter tonic, a reminder that joy here is a thief, stealing in and out before you can grasp it. The ship settles at its depth, the hull creaking like a beast in chains. You listen, ears straining for the ping of sonar, the harbinger of depth charges that could end you all. The silence is a tyrant, ruling every gesture, every breath. Klaus adjusts his watch, its cracked face catching the light, a futile defiance against the sea's timeless hunger. Hans, in the engine room, monitors the batteries, his silence a prayer for their endurance. The U-boat's electric systems were its lifeline, allowing dives to evade detection, but they drained fast. Each minute submerged was a gamble against air and power. You think of modern submarines, their sleek efficiency, and marvel at these men who stake their lives on temperamental machines, their courage a quiet flame in the deep. The brief triumph of the hit lingers, a ghost in the air. You imagine the freighter's crew, their shouts lost to the waves, their lives unraveling as water claims their ship. The thought is a stone, heavy in your gut, and you push it away, focusing on the captain's next command. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," he says, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos. The crew obeys, their motions swift, their faces masks of resolve. You check the tubes again, ensuring the next torpedo is ready, though your hands tremble, betraying the calm you try to wear. The U-boat is a predator, yes, but also prey. Its survival a delicate dance between stealth and speed. You feel the fragility of this balance. The hull's groans a reminder that steel is no match for the sea's wrath. The air grows denser, pressing against your temples, and you taste salt on your lips, though you haven't wept. The crew's silence is a shared vow, their eyes reflecting the red light like embers in a dying fire. Klaus's watch ticks on, a faint rebellion against the deep's indifference. Otto's scar glints, a map of battles yet to come. Hans's hands move with practiced care, coaxing life from the machines that keep you breathing. The ship's pulse slows, its electric motors straining under the dive. You stand at your post, the torpedo tubes your silent sentinels, their weight a reminder of the violence you've wrought. The hit was a victory, yes, but it's also a flare, signaling your presence to the escorts above. You feel the shift, the hunter's thrill giving way to the prey's dread, a pendulum swing that defines this war. The crew's faces are taut, their breaths shallow, as if the sea itself is listening. You tap the tube, 3 soft knocks, a habit now, a prayer to the steel gods for favor. The U-boat is your world, its walls your only truth, and you cling to it, a boy in a man's war, waiting for the sea to answer. The silence stretches, a taut thread ready to snap. You think of the men above, their lives extinguished by your hand, and feel a quiet sorrow, quickly buried. War demands you see them as targets, but the heart resists, whispering of shared humanity. You focus on the task, the tubes, the levers, the cold precision that keeps you alive. The captain stands at the helm, his silhouette a monolith, his calm a beacon in the dark. You marvel at his resolve, at the men who sailed these ships, their lives a currency spent in the deep. Their courage humbles you, a stark contrast to your sleepless nights, safe in a world they fought to shape. The U-96 waits, a ghost in the black, and you with it, bound to its fate, to the fleeting joy of a hit, and the dread that follows. The U-96 cowers in the Atlantic's black depths, a steel ghost trembling after the torpedo strike. 9 days into the patrol, the freighter's destruction has turned triumph to ash. A piercing ping slices through the silence, sharp as a blade against bone, the sonar of an allied destroyer, hunting you. The air is a heavy shroud, laced with the bitter tang of fear and the faint hum of electric motors straining to keep you hidden. You grip a bulkhead, knuckles white, as the red lights flicker, casting jagged shadows that dance like specters across the crew's faces. The captain's voice is a low growl. Dive deeper. 180 meters. Absolute silence. The ship tilts, plunging into the abyss, and your heart hammers, a traitor to the stillness. The hunter has become the hunted, and the sea is no ally, only a witness to your peril. The hull groans, a mournful cry as the pressure mounts, each creak a reminder of the ocean's hunger. You feel it in your bones, a crushing weight that squeezes your chest, stealing breath. The gauges tremble, their needles flirting with danger, marking the descent into a realm where steel bends and men break. In 1942, depth charges were the Allies' scourge, sinking over 100 U-boats with their relentless blasts, each one a thunderclap meant to shatter your fragile shell. You stand at your post, the torpedo tubes now silent relics, their purpose fulfilled but useless against the threat above. Klaus, his watch stilled, presses a hand to his mouth, stifling a cough that could betray you all. His eyes, wide and glassy, reflect the red glow, a mirror to your dread. The sonar's ping echoes again, closer now, a relentless pulse that hunts you through the deep. You imagine the destroyer above, its crew scanning the waves, their sonar a net tightening around you. The U-boat's silence is your only shield, but it's a fragile one, easily pierced by a dropped wrench or a careless whisper. Otto, his scar a stark line, stands frozen at his station, his fingers clenched as if to strangle his fear. Hands in the engine room, monitors the batteries, his silence a prayer for their endurance. You feel the ship strain, its welds protesting, and wonder if they'll hold, if you'll hold. The crew's discipline is a marvel, their silence a testament to training and terror, but you sense the cracks beneath, the fear that binds you like a chain. A depth charge explodes, a muffled roar that shakes the hull, sending a tremor through your spine. The lights flicker, threatening to die, and you brace against the torpedo tube, its cold surface a fleeting anchor. The blast is distant, but the next could be closer, a lottery of death you can't escape. You think of the men above, their faces unknown, their purpose clear, to bury you in this watery tomb. The thought is a splinter, sharp and unyielding, and you push it away, focusing on the captain's steady presence. He stands at the helm, his silhouette a monolith, his eyes fixed on the gauges as if he could will the ship to endure. His calm is a beacon, but you wonder if he feels the sea's wrath, if his heart races like yours. Another ping, sharper, closer. The crew's faces are masks, their breath shallow, as if the air itself is rationed. Klaus presses his hand harder, his cough a faint rattle, his eyes pleading for forgiveness. Otto's scar twitches, a map of battles survived and those yet to come. Hans's shadow moves in the engine room, his hands coaxing life from the machines that keep you breathing. You think of modern submarines, their sonar arrays and automated systems, and marvel at these men who faced death with nothing but skill and nerve, their lives a currency spent in the deep. The U-boat's design was a gamble, its Type 7C frame built for stealth but vulnerable to the relentless barrage of depth charges. You feel its fragility, a thin shell against the sea's fury. A second explosion rocks the ship, closer now, the shockwave rattling your teeth. A pipe overhead drips, each drop a cold kiss on your forehead, a reminder of the water waiting to claim you. You clench your jaw, biting back a gasp, and glance at Klaus, his face pale as bone. If we go down, at least the laundry's done, he whispers, his voice a thread of defiance, a smirk flickering before it fades. The humor is a spark, brief and desperate, but it grounds you, a reminder that even in this abyss, you're still human. The crew's silence deepens, a shared vow to endure, to outlast the hunter above. You tap the torpedo tube, 3 soft knocks, a ritual to steady your trembling hands, a prayer to the steel gods who offer no mercy. The captain adjusts the helm, his movements precise, a dance with fate. 200 meters, he says, his voice a quiet command, pushing the ship beyond its limits. The hull groans louder, a chorus of protest, and you feel the pressure in your ears, a dull ache that mirrors your fear. The sonar's ping fades, then returns, a relentless hunter refusing to yield. You imagine the destroyer's crew, their eyes on screens, their hands poised to unleash another barrage. The U-boat's silence is its only defense, but it's a fragile armor, easily shattered by a single mistake. You think of the men who sailed these ships, their average age barely 22, their lives spent in this underwater limbo, chasing a victory that felt ever more distant. Their courage humbles you, a stark contrast to your sleepless nights, safe in a world they fought to shape. The ship holds a miracle of engineering and will. You listen, ears straining for the next explosion, the next ping, but the silence grows, a tentative gift. The crew's faces soften, their eyes reflecting the red light like dying embers. Klaus's hand falls from his mouth, his cough stilled, his watch glinting faintly. Otto's scar relaxes, a line smoothed by relief. Hans's shadow moves, his hands steady on the machines that keep you alive. The sonar's ping fades, a ghost retreating into the deep. You exhale, a ragged breath that feels like betrayal in the silence. The captain's voice comes again, soft but firm. Maintain depth, stay alert. The crew obeys, their motions swift, their faces etched with resolve. You check the torpedo tubes, a futile gesture, their chambers empty but heavy with memory. The ship is a fragile thing, its welds a prayer against the sea's wrath, and you feel its strain, a mirror to your own. The U-96 is your world now, its steel walls your only truth, and you cling to it, a boy in a man's war, waiting for the sea to decide your fate. The U-96 shudders, a steel wraith caught in the Atlantic's unforgiving jaws. 9 days into the patrol, the destroyer's sonar pings chase you like a relentless spectre, each pulse a hammer against your fragile sanctuary. The air is a suffocating veil, thick with the sour tang of panic and the faint hum of overworked batteries. You cling to a bulkhead, your palms slick against the cold metal, as the red lights flicker, casting a feverish glow over the crew's taut faces. A faint drip echoes from a valve, each drop a cold heartbeat, a warning of the sea's impatience. The captain's voice cuts through, steady but laced with steel. Dive deeper, 250 meters. Your breath catches, a sharp stab in your chest. That's below crush depth, where the U-boat's hull risks folding like paper under the ocean's fist. The sea is no longer a battlefield. It's a judge, and you're on trial. The ship plunges, its bow slicing through the black, each meter a descent into a forbidden realm. The hull groans, a low wail that reverberates through your bones, as if the steel itself is pleading for mercy. The pressure gauges scream, their needles buried in the red, trembling like condemned prisoners. You know the stakes. Type 7C U-boats were engineered for 200 meters, not this abyss where the sea's weight could crush you in seconds. In 1942, dozens of U-boats met their end in these depths, their crews entombed in twisted wrecks, lost to the Atlantic's indifference. You stand at your post, the torpedo tubes now useless relics, their silence a mockery of your powerlessness. Klaus, his watch abandoned, grips a pipe, his knuckles white as bone, his eyes wide with a fear that mirrors your own. The drip grows louder, a steady rhythm from a leaking valve, each drop a tick of a clock you can't stop. Fritz, his face pale as ash, whispers in the dark, "Wir schaffen es nicht nach oben." His voice is a thread, fraying under the weight of despair, and you feel it too, a cold certainty that the surface is a dream you'll never touch. The crew's silence is a fragile shield, their breaths held as if air is a luxury they can't afford. Otto, his scar a stark line, stares at the ceiling, as if he could will the hull to hold. Hans, in the engine room, nurses the batteries, their fading power a lifeline stretched thin. You think of the destroyer above, its sonar probing like a surgeon's knife, and wonder if its crew feels the same dread, or if they're numb to the lives they hunt. Another depth charge rumbles, distant but close enough to rattle your teeth. The ship lurches, a pipe overhead spitting water, a cold lash across your cheek. You wipe it away, but the chill lingers, a reminder of the ocean's hunger. The captain stands at the helm, his silhouette a monolith, his hands steady despite the madness of his order. "Hold depth," he says, his voice a quiet anchor, as if his will alone could defy the sea. You marvel at his resolve, a man who stared into this abyss before, his survival a testament to nerve or fate. The U-boat's welds creak, each sound a question. Will they hold? In 1942, over 150 U-boats were lost to depth charges, their crews crushed or drowned, their names erased by the waves. You push the thought away, but it clings, a shadow etched in your mind. The crew's faces are masks, their eyes reflecting the red light like dying stars. Klaus's hand trembles, his watch forgotten, its cracked face a relic of a time when seconds mattered. Otto's scar twitches, a map of battles survived and those yet to come. Hans's shadow moves, his hands coaxing life from the machines that keep you breathing. You think of modern submarines, their titanium hulls and digital precision, and feel a quiet awe for these men who wagered their lives on rivets and grit, their courage aflame in the dark. The U-boat is a fragile thing, its steel a prayer against the sea's wrath, and you feel its strain, a mirror to your own. The drip continues, relentless, each drop a verdict you can't escape. The captain adjusts the helm, his movements precise, a ritual against chaos. "Steady," he murmurs, as if the ship could hear him, as if it could obey. The hull's groans grow louder, a chorus of protest, and you feel the pressure in your ears, a dull ache that mirrors your fear. The sonar's ping fades, then returns, a hunter refusing to yield. You imagine the destroyer's crew, their eyes on screens, their hands poised to unleash another barrage. Fritz, his voice barely a whisper, mutters, "If we crack, at least we'll get a free swim." His smirk is faint, a spark of defiance in the gloom, but it lands like a stone, sinking into the silence. You nod, the humor a bitter tonic, a reminder that even in this abyss, you're still human. The ship holds a miracle of engineering and will. The gauges tremble, their needles pinned in the red, but the hull endures, its welds a testament to the men who built it. You listen, ears straining for the next explosion, the next ping, but the silence grows, a fragile gift. The crew's faces soften, their eyes reflecting a flicker of hope. Klaus's hand falls, his cough stilled, his watch glinting faintly. Otto's scar relaxes, a line smoothed by relief. Hans's hands move with practiced care, coaxing life from the batteries that keep you alive. The sonar's ping fades, a ghost retreating into the deep. You exhale, a ragged breath that feels like betrayal in the silence. The captain's voice comes again, soft but firm. "Maintain depth. Stay alert." The crew obeys, their motions swift, their faces etched with resolve. You check the torpedo tubes, a futile gesture, their chambers empty but heavy with memory. The ship is a fragile thing, its welds a prayer against the sea's wrath, and you feel its strain, a mirror to your own. The U-96 is your world now, Its steel walls your only truth, and you cling to it, a boy in a man's war, waiting for the sea to decide your fate. The drip persists, a relentless reminder of your fragility. You think of the men above, their hunt a mirror to your own, their lives bound by the same cruel arithmetic of war. The thought is a splinter, sharp and unyielding, and you bury it deep, focusing on the captain's steady presence. You tap the bulkhead, 3 soft knocks, a ritual to steady your trembling hands, a prayer to the steel gods who offer no mercy. The U-96 endures, a ghost in the black, and you with it, bound to its fate, to the wolfpack's hunt, to the silent promise that you'll see the surface again, or vanish into the deep. The U-96 limps towards Saint-Nazaire, a wounded beast crawling back to its lair. 10 days into the patrol, the Atlantic's wrath has left its mark. Scars etched in the hull, a faint tremor in the engines, and a hollow ache in your soul. The air is a stale shroud, thick with the lingering stench of oil and the bitter aftertaste of survival. You stand on the conning tower as the harbour emerges, its concrete piers grey under a sky bruised with clouds. The sea's roar fades, replaced by the distant clatter of cranes and the sharp tang of diesel on the wind. Your boots, heavy with salt, scrape the deck. Each step a reluctant return to a world that feels alien. The ship has carried you through the abyss, but the weight of what you've lost clings like damp to your bones. The harbour is a muted chaos, a tapestry of labour and loss. Cranes swing, their arms skeletal against the dawn, unloading crates that will fuel the war's hunger. You watch dock workers scurry, their shouts swallowed by the wind, their faces blurred by fatigue. The U-96 docks with a groan, its hull kissing the pier like a lover too weary for passion. You step onto solid ground, and the earth feels wrong, too steady, too forgiving. 3 merchant ships sunk, a tactical triumph, the captain's log will say. But the victory is a ghost, insubstantial against the cost. In 1942, U-boats crippled Allied supply lines, sinking over 1,500 vessels. But each success invited retribution, with half the Kriegsmarine submarines lost to the deep. You feel that toll now, a ledger written in faces you'll never see again. Below deck, the crew gathers their meagre belongings, letters, knives, a tin of tobacco worn smooth by anxious hands. Klaus, his watch now still, slings a duffel over his shoulder, his eyes distant, as if the sea has stolen part of him. Otto, his scar a pale crescent, lingers by the torpedo tubes, his fingers tracing their edges, a farewell to the steel that defined him. Hans is gone, suffocated in a flooded compartment, his curses silenced forever. His body, wrapped in canvas, lies on the deck, a stark reminder beside Carl's, whose hands no longer tremble at the radio. You see their shapes, shrouded and still, and feel a hollow in your chest, as if the sea has carved out a piece of you. The crew moves past, their steps heavy, their silence louder than any requiem. The dock is a stage for hollow rituals. An officer, his uniform crisp, pins a medal to your chest, its weight cold and meaningless. The Iron Cross gleams, a mockery of glory, and you wonder if it's meant to honour you or bury your grief. Newspapers will call you heroes, but the word tastes like ash, a lie that can't erase the ringing in your ears. Fritz, his face gaunt, adjusts the medal on his jacket and mutters, "Maybe this'll pay for a dry bed." His smirk is brittle, a spark of defiance that fades into the harbour's grey. You nod, the humour a thin veil over the truth. No medal can buy back the men you've lost, the nights you've spent entombed in steel, or the dreams that drown in the deep. You walk the pier, the concrete unyielding underfoot, a stark contrast to the ship's restless sway. The harbour smells of rust and salt, a reminder of the sea you've escaped, yet it lingers in your clothes, your skin, your thoughts. You pass a stack of crates, their stenciled labels promising food and fuel, and think of the freighters you sank, their cargo lost to the waves. The war's arithmetic is brutal. Each ton sunk starves the Allies, but each U-boat lost takes 40 souls, a trade that haunts you. You glance at the U-96, its hull scarred, its paint chipped like a warrior's armor, and feel a pang of kinship. It's not just a ship, it's a mirror reflecting your battered endurance. The crew disperses, their steps slow, as if the land can't hold them. Klaus pauses by a lamppost, his watch catching the light, its cracked face a relic of time endured. He doesn't speak, but his eyes meet yours, a shared understanding that words can't capture. Otto heads to a tavern, his scar hidden under a cap, seeking oblivion in a glass. You linger, unsure where to go. The harbour is a liminal space between war and peace. The officer's voice echoes, praising your heroism, but it feels like a script read by someone who's never seen the deep. You clutch the medal, its edges sharp, and wonder if it's meant to weigh you down or lift you. The harbour's clamour fades, replaced by the memory of Hans's laugh, Karl's trembling hands, their absence a wound that no pin can heal. You think of modern ports, their orderly efficiency, and marvel at these sailors who return to this chaos with nothing but nerve and luck. Their courage was not loud but quiet, a stubborn refusal to break, a flame that burned through the dark. You sit on a crate, the wood rough under your hands, and watch the sea. It's calm now, its surface a deceptive mirror, hiding the graves below. The U-96 looms behind you, its silhouette a shadow of your past days, its hull a testament to what you've endured. You feel the weight of survival, not as triumph, but as a burden, a debt to those who didn't return. Fritz joins you, his letter tucked away, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Think we'll ever feel dry again?" he asks, his voice soft, a smirk hiding the ache. You shrug, the humour a fleeting spark, a reminder that even in this hollow victory, you're still human. The harbour fades as night falls, its lights dim pinpricks against the vast dark. You think of the men who sailed U-boats, their lives spent in the balance between hunter and hunted, their stories buried in archives or lost to the waves. Their resolve humbles you, a stark contrast to your restless nights, safe in a world they helped forge. You tap the crate, 3 soft knocks, a habit carried from the ship, a vow to carry their memory forward. The U-96 waits, a silent sentinel, ready for its next patrol, and you wonder if you're boarded again, or if this harbour, this moment, is your last taste of land. The Saint-Nazaire harbour lies quiet under a bruised sky, its concrete piers slick with rain that falls like a whispered verdict. A month has passed since U-96 dragged you back from the Atlantic's jaws, yet the sea's shadow clings to you, a cold weight woven into your breath. You stand on the dock, boots heavy with damp, the air sharp with salt and iron. The U-boat looms, its hull a scarred relic, its silhouette a silent summons pulling you back to the deep. Orders arrived at dawn, a folded paper stained with coffee, commanding another patrol. Your chest tightens, not with fear of death, but with a deeper dread, dying alone, forgotten in the black, where no one will ever know you existed. The wind carries a faint hum, the harbour's pulse, and you wonder if you'll ever escape its call. The dock is a ghost town, its familiar faces eroded by the war's relentless tide. The wolfpack, once a fierce chorus of steel, has lost 4 boats in the last mission, their crews swallowed by the sea's indifferent maw. You scan the pier for Fritz's wiry frame, for Otto's scarred grin, but they're gone, replaced by strangers. Recruits with eyes too bright, their uniforms crisp, untouched by the deep's despair. One, a boy barely 18, stares at U-96, his voice light with bravado. Looks like a coffin that swims. His laugh is a spark, quickly doused by the rain, but it cuts, a wry echo of your own buried fears. You offer a nod, the humour a fleeting bridge between you, a reminder that even in this grim dance, you're still tethered to humanity. You step toward the U-boat, its hatch a yawning mouth, inviting yet merciless. The air shifts, heavy with the tang of rust and diesel, a scent that has seeped into your dreams. You pause, hand resting on the hull, its surface cold and pitted, like the skin of a beast that knows too much. The Kriegsmarine's U-boat campaign, you've heard, is faltering. By 1943, Allied escorts and codebreakers were turning the tide, sinking over 200 submarines in a single year. Each patrol is a gamble now, the odds stacked against you, yet the war demands you play. You think of the men who sailed before, their names lost to the deep, their courage a quiet flame that lit the dark. Their resolve humbles you, a stark contrast to your sleepless nights, safe in a world they fought to forge. The new crew gathers, their voices a murmur against the harbour's din. You see them, boys like you, their eyes wide with the innocence of those yet to face the abyss. One fumbles with a duffel, his hands unsteady, a letter peeking from his pocket. Another polishes a knife, its blade glinting like a promise he can't keep. You recognize their rituals, echoes of your own, tapping a rail, clutching a trinket, small acts of defiance against the sea's vast indifference. You've kept yours. 3 knocks on the hull, not for luck, but as a vow to the steel beast that you'll return, or go down together. The act is absurd, a whisper against the void, yet it grounds you, a thread of will in a world that cares for none. The captain emerges, his silhouette leaner now, his eyes hollowed by battles unseen. He moves with a predator's grace, but his shoulders sag, as if the sea has carved its weight into him. "Prepare to board," he says, his voice a low tide, steady but worn. You follow, ducking through the hatch, the air inside a familiar prison, thick with oil and salt, a shroud that clings to your skin. The red lights flicker, casting shadows that twist like ghosts across the bulkheads. You find your bunk, its canvas worn thin, and settle your pack, the weight of another patrol settling heavier. The ship groans a soft lament, as if it too dreads the journey ahead. You think of modern ships, their sleek consoles and open decks, and marvel at these men, who sailed with nothing but nerve and steel, their lives a currency spent in the dark. The crew moves with quiet purpose, their motions a liturgy of survival. The new faces are a jarring note, too eager, too loud, their laughter a foreign sound in this iron womb. You watch them, a mix of pity and envy, knowing the sea will teach them soon enough. One, a lanky boy named Werner, adjusts his cap, his grin wide. "At least we'll see the world," he says, his voice bright with ignorance. You don't reply, but the irony stings. A world of black water and silent dread is no postcard view. The humour is a shadow, a wry reflection of your journey, from green recruit to a boy who knows the sea's true face. You tap the bulkhead, 3 knocks, a silent promise to endure, to carry their ghosts forward. The ship prepares to sail, its engine stirring with a reluctant hum. You check your station, the torpedo tubes now familiar, their levers a language you speak without thought. The gauges flicker, their needles steady but unforgiving, a reminder of the delicate balance that keeps you alive. The captain stands at the helm, his chart open, its lines a map of fates yet to unfold. You think of the men who sailed U-boats, their average age barely 22, their lives spent in this underwater limbo, chasing a victory that slipped further with each patrol. Their courage was not loud, but quiet, a stubborn refusal to break, a flame that burned through the dark. You feel a pang of gratitude for a life where fear is a memory, not a constant companion, where the sea is a story, not a sentence. The harbour fades as U-96 slips into the tide, its hull cutting through the waves like a blade through flesh. You stand on the conning tower, the rain a cold lash against your face, the sea stretching endlessly before you. The new crew's chatter dies, their bravado drowned by the ocean's vastness. You think of home, of a window open to a summer breeze, of laughter free from the weight of survival. The memory is a knife, sharp and fleeting, and you bury it deep where it can't distract you. The U-boat is your world now, its steel walls your only truth, and you cling to it, a boy in a man's war, bound to its fate, to the promise of another patrol, another dance with the deep. The ship dives, its bow dipping into the black, and you feel the pressure, a tangible force squeezing your chest. The red lights flare, casting a crimson haze over the crew, their faces masks of resolve and fear. Werner adjusts his cap, his grin gone, his eyes wide with the sea's first lesson. The captain's voice is a steady anchor. Maintain course, check systems. You obey, your hands moving to the torpedo controls, their levers cold and unyielding. The ship's pulse is your own, a rhythm of endurance, of defiance. You think of the men who sailed these ships, their stories buried in archives or lost to the waves, and feel a quiet awe. Their resolve was a monument, built not of stone, but of will, a testament to survival in a world that offered none. You tap the hull, 3 soft knocks, a vow to the steel beast that has carried you this far. The sea waits, its hunger eternal, its verdict unknown. You are no longer afraid of dying, but of dying alone in the dark, where no one will know you existed. The U-96 sails on, a ghost in the deep, and you with it, bound to its fate, to the promise of return, or the silence of the abyss. You think of modern comforts, of nights spent safe in warmth, and feel a gratitude that anchors you, a debt to these men who faced the dark so you could live in the light. As the U-96 fades into the Atlantic's embrace, we've sailed through nights of steel and shadow, felt the sea's weight, and heard the silent courage of men who faced the deep. Their story lingers, a whisper of resilience, now yours to hold. Let your shoulders soften, your breath slow, like waves lapping a distant shore. Release the day's burdens, let the tide of sleep carry you gently. If your eyes still linger in the dark, share your thoughts below. What stirred your heart tonight? Tomorrow, another tale awaits, a new journey to cradle your dreams. Close your eyes, dear listener, and drift. The sea is calm now, and rest is near.